A heads up. Oh, already going. Thank you, whoever did that. Okay. We wanted to start the meeting off first with, there's been some heavy news circulating around about Asian American and Pacific Islander, the community facing a lot of hate crimes and just general hate, whether it's hate crimes or just in general. I'm not wording this well. As an Asian person, it's been kind of difficult to be looking at social media right now. But we wanted to say, please boost and support whatever causes you can. We have found some resources that we pulled together. We can drop those links in the chat if you want to look. There's some cards, there's some just resource guides and things for anyone who wants to take a look at that. And yeah, I'm just gonna paste these really quick. We've got one that's just a card. We've got a playbill thing, which is a resource guide. This one is the National Queer Asian Pacific Islander Alliance, and this one is the Asian Mental Health Collective. So thank you to the e-board members who helped put this together. And yeah, thank you for supporting this and for keeping our community in mind. Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Caitlin. Okay, so hi and welcome to the first official guest event for the Musicians Intersectionality Initiative. We're really excited to have people here, and we're really excited to have Chris here. We wanted to just start by talking a little bit about what we do. We are basically trying to work to open up the music school to more to increase inclusion and representation and equity in our music education, and to create a space for students to connect with resources and connect with other students who want to be working on this, because coming together is a big part of what makes this progress happen. So that's what we're here for. We want to talk a little bit about some things that there are to be looking forward to. We have an event series that will be announced soon, so keep an eye on our social media and stuff. We are teaming up with some really great other music organizations, and that's supposed to be announced later this week, early next week, so keep an eye out. We also have sort of started talking about a new idea that we wanted to just give a little boost to. Alejandro and I met with some faculty yesterday, and we're talking about starting a mentorship initiative between faculty and students who share marginalized identities. Something we talked about in our student forums is how sometimes it's hard to be in these to identify in these ways and to not see yourself in the industry and things like that. And we wanted to work on creating a support system. So there's that, and also we're talking about doing it between like upper and lower classmen, maybe getting some alumni involved. So if you know anyone who would be interested in that, or you would be interested yourself, feel free to contact us. We'll be putting more information out about that as we get it, and as we put that together. This is a very new idea, but we're really excited about it. And one of the best ways to stay in touch with everything that we're doing, this is not the right link here, is through, we have a mailing list and we have a bunch of social media that you can keep on, that you can follow or sign up for, and those can all be found in our link tree, which I just put in the chat, and I'll send it in the email for those who are watching the recording. Yeah, so on to the main part of the event. We're very excited to have our music librarian, Chris Shanton, here, and I'm gonna pass it off to our vice president. I didn't introduce myself. I'm Malaya, I'm the president of me. And I'm gonna pass it off to our vice president, Alejandro Galdo.
Hello, everybody. Thanks so much again for coming and taking time out of your day to be with us here today. Not that Ms. Shanton really needs an introduction today. We thought that for those of you who have not yet gotten a chance to work with or have met her yet, we would kind of give some background info. So this is just kind of stuff we were compiling recently. So as if it weren't enough that Ms. Shanton holds her master's in library and information science from the University of Illinois, Ms. Shanton also holds an additional master's degree in flute performance from the Washington University in St. Louis. And just recently, both Ms. Shanton and Dr. Hafley, who is another advisor in an organization, co-authored the chapter Evaluating Editions of Printed Music for the book Information Literacy in Music, an Instructor's Companion, which was just published in 2018 to AR Publications, one of the leading publishers in scholarly editions of music in the US. The book contains the works of several music librarians and faculty who collaborated to create a practical guide to informational literacy for music students and educators. So it would therefore not be by any stretch of the imagination to say that Ms. Shanton quite literally wrote the book on informational literacy and how to utilize academic resources for music educators. Most recently, Ms. Shanton was a guest speaker at the Music Library Association conference in Ohio last year, where she gave a presentation on teaching performance-based research skills. And finally, I believe this year marks actually the 20th year that Ms. Shanton will be having worked with us here at IC. So needless to say, we're extremely lucky to have her not only as our first guest speaker, but also as our music librarian. So without further ado, Ms. Shanton, the floor is all yours.
Oh, thank you, Alejandro. Yes, 20 years almost at IC as a librarian, but before then, a long time before then, I was where you are right now. And I got my undergrad degree from IC as well in music performance. I may very well have been in some of your dorm rooms. I don't know. Thank you all for being here tonight. And what I really want to do tonight is talk with you about, how you find music from marginalized composers. It's not an easy thing. Not only are they marginalized in terms of what you're learning about, they're not part of the main Western canon, but tracking that information down can be a difficult thing to do as well, because just as they may not be performed as often as Beethoven, they may also not have been published as often as Beethoven. They may not have been written about as often. So we have all of these layers to wade through, and this goes for past and living composers. We've got to wade through all these layers to try and track down who the composers are, how we find their music, how we get our hands on their music before we can even try to consider, well, am I going to play this on my junior recital? Am I going to play it in a chamber ensemble? What do I want to do with this? Before I get into all of that, now I want to know a little bit about you. It's going to be helpful for me tonight. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you all have your phones with you. I've got mine with me. And I would like to do a super, super short Mentee quiz. So I'm hoping you've all had Mentee quizzes before. You're going to go to mentee.com and there's a code. It's similar to Kahoot, right? You go to the website, you enter the numerical code. And I want to make sure that I've actually started this quiz. Hang on one second. Let me make sure I've done this right. No, I sure haven't. There we go. Can you see my screen now with the right code? Yep. Okay, great. And I see 3 of you have put your instruments in. 4, 6, we're almost there. I just want to get an idea of what your instruments are. And it's a small enough group that I could have just asked you to put it in the chat, but my goodness, I made this little Mentee thing, so we're going to do it. Okay. I might be waiting for a couple, but you can still go ahead and answer. Oh, wait, I want to look at the results. Oh, gosh. Okay. Well, my next question is, what are you hoping to learn during tonight's session? This will be a help for me. Oh, that, yep. Connect with living artists. Diverse repertoire for your primary instrument. Getting comfortable with finding and researching repertoire, finding music for different instruments. I'll wait another minute or two just in case anyone else is still typing. How to create a program. Yeah, starting points for searching. Absolutely. And historical research sources. Historical research resources, that can be a tricky thing. I'm going to go ahead and close this and exit this right here. I don't know why I wasn't able to see all your answers about your instruments, but you know what? That's all right for right now. Let me stop sharing. Okay. So when you start to look for music by marginalized, underrepresented, or minoritized composers, you've really got two ways of going about it, because there is not, in most cases, there's not one great source that says, here's the main book that you have to use. Oh, Cam, you're leaving. Oh, no, it was Caitlin. Cam's here. Okay. Bye, Caitlin. Thank you. There's no one great source that helps you find it all. There's no one great encyclopedia. You've all found this already if you started looking. So you really have two options. You can either dig down into this information by looking for composer criteria and then looking for works. So in other words, you say, I'm looking for an LGBTQ composer, or I'm looking for a Black composer, or I'm looking for a female composer, and other criteria, maybe the time period is important to you. So you start by the composer criteria and then you whittle it down. Or the second way, I'm laughing because I have a cat who's desperately trying to get attention, and I'm trying to keep him away from the computer screen. First way is you identify what composer criteria you want. The other way is you identify what instrument you are looking for. And these two ways exist because that's the type of tools that exist. So that's how we're going to approach looking for things tonight. Here's the cat in question. He's being bad. Okay. What I said earlier that, I'm so sorry. Can you still hear me? Okay. What I said earlier about having a difficult time finding resources by composers, because they may have had trouble publishing. People may not have been writing about them. Their music could have been published, but libraries might not have collected it. So not as many copies were published, not as many copies survived throughout the years. All of that can be an impediment to finding resources. The good news is, and some people mentioned that they were looking for resources by living composers. If you are researching a living composer, almost always they have a website. And while they may be dealing with the same struggles as past composers, in that they may be having problems getting their work published, their work may not be collected as heavily in libraries as other composers' works. Perhaps they're young composers, they're just starting out and they don't have that many works done yet. The beautiful thing about their websites is that you can contact them. You can often find audio and video and sometimes scores from those composers as well. So I'm going to show you an example of one composer. Let me share my screen where we can see this is exactly the case. Okay, hang on just one moment. I swear I'm gonna have to text someone in my family and tell them that they've got to come feed this cat so he leaves me alone. Okay, here we go. This is the website of a composer who is actually not that much older than you are. He is, I think, 25 or he is 24 and about to turn 25 in this year. His name is Kevin Day, and he's won a number of awards recently. And this is his website. He's got, not only does he have a list of his compositions, I mean, you can find his bio here, but you've got audio, you've got video of these pieces. And this is one of the most valuable things that you can look for when you are trying to decide, particularly with a living composer, how far do I go to try and access this music? Perhaps you're interested in playing this samba trio, which is for piano and cello and flute. And now we've discovered that he's written this. You can listen to it, decide, does it sound like it's within your ability? The next question is, has this been published or not? If it has been published, great. We're going to talk about how you can try and get this from another library. If it hasn't been published, then you've got at least contact information for him. He's a living person. You reach out to him and simply say, I'm interested in this piece. How much would it cost to purchase this piece? Can I borrow this piece? I'm interested in playing it for my junior recital, or I'm doing a research project on chamber music with this instrumentation, and I'm really interested in. You feel free to reach out to contemporary composers. They want their work played just like any other composer. Think about the students that you know who are composition majors. They want their work played. So with living composers, you've got a perfect example here. You've got contact information. This is key, especially if you're looking for more contemporary composers. So let's get into now looking at some resources that are available on the diversity page on the library Diversifying Your Rep Guide. That's mostly what we're going to be working with tonight. And I'm going to put the link to that in the chat. Let me stop sharing it. Let me get the link for this. Okay. So we've got the link to the Diversify Your Repertoire Guide, and we're really going to be working through this. I'm going to give you time to be searching this on your own as well. Absolutely. So when we look at this guide, the landing page is just an about guide, right? But if you remember, I said there are really sort of two ways to go about a detailed search for music that you're interested in. One is diving down by a composer criteria. And that's what we're going to look at first. I'm going to go to this composer. When you click on the Find a Composer tab, what you will find, and actually what I should say is this whole guide, these are not databases or links that I've created. These are links that I have found that exist out there online, and I've pulled them together for you to be able to sort through. So you don't have to be Googling it. There are a variety of links here that you can search by composer criteria, and we're going to look at a couple of them. And this is the page that I'm going to have you search. So let me just go through them. There are some definitions, but I want to show you what they look like first, and so you can see how they work. The Composer Diversity Database is really sort of one of the big databases that's out there. It was created by an organization called the Institute for Composer Diversity. And I'm going to click on this link, and you can see when we get into the database, they have a variety of databases. They have a choral diversity database. They have a works diversity database. But if you scroll down the page, this is where you get to the main database. And it's here where you can put the criteria in that you're looking for. So in this case, I'm going to click that I want a living composer. And if I don't click anything, it's going to find all for me. And I'm going to say a Black composer. I could put gender identity down. Other demographic criteria, I could select multiples. I could even select a genre if I'm interested, or a subgenre, or a location. But I don't have to fill that out. And for our purposes tonight, I'm just going to hit living and Black, and I'm going to hit search. And what it's going to give me is, it's just a directory of composers. Because I've picked living composers, it's giving me composer pages if there are some. And as I said before, you're dealing with a living composer, they're going to have a web page. You might notice a couple things. One is that these are not presented in any order, right? It's not alphabetical in any way. So it means that you may have to scroll through some pages if you're looking for a particular person. But we didn't specify that. We are just looking for anybody. So we got a lot of results back. I'm going to click on go to my second page. I'm even seeing these things in different orders than when I just looked before. Here's a composer I'm going to look for right here, Jonathan Bailey Holland. I could view more details about him, but I'm just going to click on his composer page. And this is going to take me to his website, where I can see his list of works. He's got commercial recordings on media. Let me just look at his list of works right here. And you can see he's got them broken down into stage works, as opera, and more information about this. Where did it premiere? What are the voicings? What are the forces needed? Is there a recording? Jonathan Bailey Holland links out to SoundCloud recordings. Different composers will do this differently. He's got chamber and solo works. You just have to sort of navigate their pages to find out what type of music they have. Look at their media. What type of sounds are they making, right? When you're trying to decide what it is you want to play, you want to listen to it first. Is this the style that you're interested in? Yes, it's contemporary, but what is the style that you're talking about? So that's a quick display of the Composer Diversity Database. The Composers Equity Project has another list. And what you'll notice is, because these are all different websites, we would probably find Jonathan Bailey Holland also on this list. But the Composers Equity Project has a slightly different focus. And if we look at how they have grouped their composers together. This is a product of Chamber Music America, and they have given sort of subcategories. So they used an acronym called ALANA, like IC's ALANA scholars. They have a little cross mark for a composer if they're currently commissioned by CMA, by Chamber Music America. And then they also have a little mark that stands for gender non-conforming composers. This is really just a list with links out to people. You can't easily search the way you could the previous database and say, well, you're looking for a queer female composer in the United States, right? This is really just a list. I'm going to show you a particular composer because it's going to link out to her site, Eve Beglarian. But I want to show you another possibility that you run across, particularly with living composers. Often they will make their scores available to you to peruse. So this is Eve Beglarian's site, and I'm going to click on her category, Perform. And you can see on her site, she has tried to make a searchable version of it. I'm going to search her catalog by flute. Because I had a question about this just this semester. Someone was interested in finding this piece called Can I Have It Without Begging, which is a piece for flute and pre-recorded track. And while she does not include, or there's no video with it, it's just an audio electronics. When we take a look at it, we'll get more information about the piece. We'll get her notes about the work for certain. And one of the things you find as you scroll down, you find its history, commission for the National Flute Association. She has notes to the performer, and she has provided a score to the piece, a perusal score, where you can actually take a look and see, what is this piece going to look like? What do I need to do? If I'm a flutist, what is it going to ask of me? She also, this particular composer, says you purchase the performance materials by clicking the buy button. Because you need to purchase, you're going to perform this, you need more than the score, you need that audio track to be able to play it. But she said the fee was originally $40, but she has it set to pay as you can for the duration of the pandemic. This is the first composer that I've seen that's done this, but I also haven't gone looking for composers who have done this. What I can say is that with living composers, it's not unusual to find composers who are making their scores available on a perusal basis. If you've heard of the composer Missy Mazzoli, she makes her scores available that way. The composer Julie Giroux, who does a lot of band works, she makes not all of her scores, but lots of them available for perusal. And when Professor Rockford, when we all went out last year at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was actually right before the pandemic. We didn't know we would be shut down yet. And he was really interested in getting a particular Julie Giroux score and was not able to, we weren't able to get it. And he really wanted to study it over spring break. And what do you know, we found it, she had it up and available online. Now, he'd already ordered it for the concert band, but it just hadn't arrived yet. It gave him the opportunity to take a look at it. So that is, that's one site off of the Chamber Music America Composers Equity Project. We have a site called Music Theory Examples by Women. If you're ever doing any type of teaching, or I won't go into this too much, I'll show it to you and you can explore it absolutely. But if you are looking for a particular theoretical examples, meter and rhythm, or scales, or different tonalities, different harmonic progressions or cadences. And you want them to be different than the Mozart, than the Beethoven, than the Schubert ones that you've seen in your theory classes. All of these are examples by women, and you can even select the time period. So while this site isn't necessarily made to just be one for people who are looking for new information about new composers they haven't heard of, it's absolutely one that you can use to find new composers. You could say, well, I don't know, who are we talking about? Baroque composers. Who are the female Baroque composers? I don't know who they are. And it's going to list, not all of them, but the ones that they have taken and included their compositions for music theory examples. Let me go just to some of the other sites. We have a couple of sites that are devoted to music by Black composers. They are both put out by an organization called Music by Black Composers. They have a living composers directory and a historic composers directory. Let me show you what the living composers directory looks like. It's similar in that it just links out to websites. Here's the living composers directory. You can search it. They do provide their information alphabetically. You have to watch out for stuff though. I'm going to show you an example. I'm looking for, Adolphus Hailstork. And you think, great, here's the website. I'm going to go right here. And when I click on that website, we get a page not found. But he's a living composer. All you need to do really is Google them, and you're going to be able to pull up a website for that composer, unless they're really, really at the end of their career, and perhaps they're just not composing anymore. They're just not interested in putting their works out there. If they're a living composer, you're going to be able to find a website for them. So I just wanted to show you, and again, we're seeing the same things that we've seen before: scores broken down by category. There's always going to be contact information. They're going to have a gallery because people want to show off their works. So interested musicians will be able to listen and say, yeah, I want to buy that piece, or I want to borrow that piece. Then at the end of I should say the historic composers directory is a list, but it has no links. It's really just factual information. The page hasn't loaded yet. So it gives people's names, composers' names, their birth and death dates, where they were active, their gender, but it doesn't provide any other information. So if you were interested in learning more about Justin Holland, you really would need to do your own research. And what you would do, truthfully, first, what you do is you do a Google search and see whether you can find a Wikipedia page on Justin Holland. And then you'd learn more about them and try and find out more and more. Look for books, look for articles, look for scores. So what I think I'd like for you to do now is I want you to have some time to go off on your own and explore those sites. But I'm going to show you how I want you to explore, because I want everybody to kind of share what they're doing. There is a program called Jamboard. I know some of you have not used Jamboard. I'm going to show you what Jamboard looks like, and then I'm going to give you the link so you can all go in and add and show you what I'm going to want you to do. So I'd like you to use these composer tools and take about 10 minutes to explore composers and find at least one. And this isn't for a class assignment. Take your time. You've got 10 minutes. Find a composer that you're interested in. Don't just sort of pick the first one on the list. So I'm going to say, I'm looking at Kevin Day. He was that first composer's website that I showed you. This is what Jamboard looks like. You've got a panel over on the left-hand side that will allow you to add photos. So I'm going to add an image just that I just had prepared for this class. And really what I did is I went and did a Google image search. There he is. And it's super easy. If I want to make the image smaller, I just drag it, compress it down. And then if I want to, I'm going to add some sticky notes. So the sticky notes is this little icon over here. I'm just going to click on it and I'm going to do one sticky note and say, well, this is Kevin Day and he is a living composer. I want to hit save. It'll put a sticky note there and I can move it around. And then I'm going to add another sticky note. And I'm going to say, yes, he has a website. And I'm actually even going to capture his website. Oh, there's my mouse. I don't actually even need to have the word website there. You all know what that is. And then just any other interesting information. Does he have a Wikipedia page? Kevin Day does not have a Wikipedia page. I have searched for it. His music is fantastic too. So what I would like you to do is go to Jamboard. I'll drop the link in the chat for you. So I want you to go to Jamboard. You should all be able to edit. If I've set it up correctly, you all should be able to edit. But first, what I want you to do is go to the LibGuide, find a composer, explore those tabs, find a composer that you're interested in, explore their websites, or Google them. If you're finding a composer who's not alive anymore, do they have a Wikipedia page? What can you find out about them and add them to the Jamboard? Explore several different of those tools. Does that make sense, what I'm asking you to do? Yep. Let's take about 10 minutes. I'm going to give you 10 minutes of time to explore. When you go to these people's websites, listen to some of their work. Decide, do I like this? Do I not like it? And then move on. So I'm going to, while we're waiting for this 10 minutes, I'm going to share my screen again, just with information about what I'm asking you to do. And let's all come on back at 6:50. Sound good? Okay. There we go. You can feel free, if you want to mute your video too while you're searching, feel free to leave it on too. If Jamboard runs out of room, you can see at the top, you can move to the next frame. Just in case, when you get to Jamboard, if you feel like there's not any space there, you can move to another, essentially another page. That's great. I don't know who posted the information for Inti Figus Vizueta. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right. Malaya, that fun fact is awesome. That's a great way of learning about, new information. Is that score follower? That's something that I'm super interested to look at to see what that is. Great. So you all found composers, you all found their websites, they're all living, which is wonderful. And that was going to make, if you are trying to track down the score, it can make it much easier to get those scores if you run into a roadblock with trying to get it through normal library resources. So let's talk about what those normal library resources. The next thing that I want to show you is what you do now that you found a composer. Maybe you're interested in getting some of their works, right? And what you want to do is go to our database called WorldCat. So I'm going to show you what it looks like once you're in WorldCat. I'll share my screen. There's the whiteboard. Can you all see my database screen? It says first search at the top, but really what we know it as is WorldCat. Actually, let me see if you guys want to show me your hands so I can see real fast. How many of you have requested anything through Interlibrary Loan before? 3, okay. Alejandro, you haven't. Grace, I don't see you, so maybe not. But Interlibrary Loan is your friend for when you find a score that you're looking for. And if you want to go to Interlibrary Loan, which is where the library will borrow that score for you free of charge for your use, we'll borrow it from another library. The key to doing that is going to the WorldCat database. That's where you want to be. I'm going to show you a quick way of searching WorldCat just really fast. I know everybody's leaving. So let me just show you super fast. You're all busy people. That's okay. When you go to WorldCat and you have a composer's name, I'm going to look for the composer named Omar Thomas. I put his name in. I'm going to change this from reading keyword to author. This is really important, especially if you have someone with a last name like Thomas, which can, as you can imagine, we're going to run into lots of people with the names Thomas. And I'm just going to do a search. When I get my results, I have books and visual and sound. I want to go right over here to scores. And all of a sudden I'm down to 17 scores. But really what I want to do is, you see, I've got a lot of results. Most records will show me who's listed as an author. So this is Thomas Addis is a composer. Omar Khayyam they're using text from Omar Khayyam. It's not the composer Omar Thomas. But here's one right below it where I see Omar Thomas composer. I could also have included Omar Thomas and then words from a title. If I want to be sure I'm only getting materials by that Omar Thomas, I just go into a record and then his name is linked under the author. If I click on that, I'm going to rerun a search and I'm only going to get things by that particular composer. And here I can see some recordings and I can see 6 scores. Now I know, because I've looked him up, he's got more than 6 scores. He's got more pieces than just those 6, but these are scores that are collected in libraries. And we can see just from WorldCat that we have a number of those scores in our collection. And if I wanted to read more about it, I could. But let's just say you were looking for this score called I Am. All you would do, and for those of you who've done Interlibrary Loan, you've probably done it through WorldCat, is you get into the record of what you want, and then up at the top, there's a link that says get it at IC Library. And that's going to funnel you through the interlibrary loan process, right? You just need to make sure you're logged in to your library account. I don't want to keep you that much longer because I know that you all are busy, busy folks. But what I do want to do is show you the other parts of the site, particularly the parts I want to, do we have time? Do you need to stop right at 7 or so we can go a little over? Okay. Because I want to give you time to search the instrument specific lists as well and see what you can find that way. So let's look at these instrument specific lists. This was the second way I mentioned of really diving down deep to get not information based on a composer, but for your own very own instrument. And when we look here, I've broken this down into lists that have been compiled for different instruments. There are some large ensembles, so there's a band or one ensemble, and then there's also a choral group down below. They're all alphabetical. So we've got bassoon, we've got cello, there's the choral music lists, here's clarinet, flute, horn, etc. I'm going to go a little bit down here to percussion just to show you the extent that some groups have gone to. Many of these lists are compiled by institutions. Actually, so if I look at this oboe rep by Black composers, this is a spotlight list from the Institute for Composer Diversity. They were one of the composer lists that we looked at earlier. And what they've done is they've taken their database and they've pulled out oboe repertoire. But some of these lists are crowdsourced databases, crowdsourced Google Docs or Excel sheets. The percussion pieces by Black composers, for example, is a Google Doc, a Google sheet. And when you take a look at it, you land on the how to use this document page. But if you look down across the bottom, you've got tabs for percussion solos, percussion ensembles, mixed instrumentation, steel band, and you can keep going through this. So this, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. This instrument specific list particularly is one that I can use your help on, because these are lists that are often, they're often popping up, and you might find out about them through social media. Twitter is actually a great place to find a lot of these lists, or Facebook. Or you might find out about it from a podcast, however you learn about these types of things. If there are resources for your instrument that need to be on this list, email me and I will add them to this list. So we go all the way down through the strings, down to voice at the end. And I think what I'd like you to do now, really all you're going to be doing, all the lists look different. You're just going to go find your instrument and you're just going to dive in. And with each website, you're just going to have to figure out how to navigate that website. So what I'd like you to do now is let's take 10 minutes. Come back if you're done. We might call it an early 10. Go to your instrument list, find some pieces on your instrument list, and then go to WorldCat and see if those pieces are available for interlibrary loan. And by all means, if you want that piece, put in an interlibrary loan request. Okay? So let's take about 10 minutes. It's just about 7. I'm going to put this up so you can all see it. It's just about 7. So you can get to WorldCat either by going to the library homepage, to the databases tab, and then clicking on WorldCat, or on the Diversify Your Rep guide on the left-hand side, I have an interlibrary loan tab that you can click on that will give you that WorldCat link. So search through an instrument list, find a piece that you think, yeah, I might really like this, and then go into WorldCat to see if you can track it down and interlibrary loan it if you want it. Then, if you've got time before 7:10, add it to that Jamboard list. It doesn't have to be the same composer at all, right? You may be finding different composers. Just add it to the Jamboard list so we can see what you found. Okay, how's everybody doing? Were you able to find things for your instrument? Were you able to find them in WorldCat? Yeah? Yeah, Alejandro, how'd you do?
I was using WorldCat at first, and I think firstly I was just trying to make sure I could find a solo piano rep because when we were using the first couple resources, that was like the trouble I was having. But then this one was much more useful. But every time I was like looking it up in, actually I did. I didn't find the specific piece, but in looking for the composer, I found that they had uh, a collection of art songs on Library Loan, so that was really cool. Uh,
Okay,
but not the specific piece at the moment, at least.
yeah. So pretty much if you find it in WorldCat, when you look at WorldCat, it's a catalog of thousands of libraries. So if you find it in WorldCat, and the reason why I had everybody go to WorldCat instead of first going to our catalog to see whether we had it is because WorldCat will tell you if we have it. So if it shows up with a little green IC library, then you know, oh, we've got it in our collection. And you can actually even click that get it at IC library link, and it'll take you to our information. But it can be tricky, right? Because sometimes, again, we know that historical composers, particular composers from the past, we can tell that they've written particular pieces, and we know that because there are letters about it, or there's some documentation that, oh, they wrote this set of 3 dances and it was performed here. But did that survive throughout time? And the next thing we have to do is try and figure out, okay, we know that this set of 3 pieces exists, 3 dances exists, and we can't find anybody in WorldCat that has it. So what else do we need to do to try and dig up this piece? And sometimes pieces are just missing, um, or you have to really go outside WorldCat to do a lot of digging. But for the most part, WorldCat is going to be a great place for you to go to find out what's been published and how available it is, and then also put your request in to get it. Okay. The last couple things that I just want to show you, and this is really all just going through the guide, but I think it's important for you to see it. When you are looking at the guide, the Diversify Rep Guide, you know, many of these sites have more interesting aspects to them. So for example, the Institute for Composer Diversity has a whole set of resources. In this resource, they have state lists. So for example, if any of you are ed majors and you know that you are going to be, I don't know, conducting middle school orchestras, for example, and you're looking for pieces that fall within certain difficulty levels, they've got access to that here on this site. They also have a really interesting best practices document that talks about how you're going to program. What are you going to do for a concert season? What's the percentage of works by living composers or women composers or underrepresented heritages that you should have if you had, for example, an orchestral season with 50 works, or a choral season, or a string quartet season, right? You know, how do you program? What are the models? So what are the best ways of avoiding tokenizing music by these composers? So explore these websites when you have time, you know, in all your spare time that you have. But many of the organizational websites like this have a separate resource section where you can find, for example, and this leads into the next thing, the Institute for Composer Diversity also has audio or video. So they've got composer diversity channels on Pandora. You can take a look at pre-1970 orchestral music, post-1970. pre-1850 vocal music by underrepresented composers, if that's what you're looking for. And their links will just take you to the Pandora playlists. Oh, that's not where I want to go. But also on our guide, we have links to video series and podcasts that you might find interesting. And this also, I'm looking for help. If you know of a great podcast or great playlists that can be added into here, let me know. Just send me an email. This Amplify with Laura Downs is an ongoing video series that has just been renewed for a second season, where she sits and talks with Black musicians about their experiences in sort of the classical world, you know, what their experiences have been like, how they've managed as performers, as composers. Podcasts that are ongoing, including urban music education, if you're music ed majors, how you present music from underrepresented heritages in a music education setting, or a classically Black podcast, or Triloquy. So there are podcasts and videos, and I need to change this to read videos and podcasts and playlists, because they're out there. The people are doing the work. It's just hard to track it down sometimes. Then there's also some information here, and I know pretty much I've got all of you board members for me left, but there are resources here for how you support composers, how you commission new works. How do you commission a work by an individual? What's a guide? What can you expect if me, for example, ever decided, you know what, we're going to do a big fundraising thing and we're going to try and commission a work, a level 2 oboe work by an Asian composer. And what is that even going to involve? There are resources out there that will give you information on what it takes to commission a work. And of course, you've got colleagues who are composers too. So you can talk to them about that. When I say that people are doing the work and it's out there, I do mean it. It's hard to find though. And unfortunately, what it means for you is that you've got to do the digging when you're looking for this type of work. But if you want to think about it in a positive light, you can think of it in terms of this way. As you're going through your education at IC, one of the things that happens is you change from a first-year student to a fourth-year, 4.5-year music student, is that your work, your rep, gradually shifts from what your faculty tell you to be doing, right? What your private instruction faculty are telling you to do, to letting that open up more to what pieces are you interested in? What do you want to do? And that work is the work that stays with you for the rest of your life. After you graduate, no matter what you end up doing in music, you're going to have to decide, what am I going to play? If you're an instructor, you're going to have to decide, what am I going to program? And it's always going to be a learning opportunity for learning new scores. There are always new scores being written. So this type of digging, this type of work is the actual true work of being a musician out of school, right? How do you find it? It's just, if you want to find the work of these groups, underrepresented composers, underrepresented heritages, genders, it's not, you'll need to use resources like this. There's no library catalog where you can go in, just like you can sit down at the library catalog and you can say, symphonies, Find me all the symphonies you have. Find me all the solo piano pieces that you have. Find me the piano and clarinet pieces that you have, the clarinet and piano sonatas. That's what I'd like. Where you can do that in library catalogs, but what you cannot do is say, find me the clarinet and piano pieces by female composers or by Black composers or Filipino composers or Latina composers. You're just not able to say that in catalogs. So that's why I have these tools pulled together for you to use. That's all I got for you. That's a lot to throw at you all at once.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this was really helpful. And I just really appreciated like how much we got to look at living composers, because I think that's something that like our organization definitely supports, is like we're doing this work to make, hopefully, like we're hoping for a better and more inclusive industry overall that makes it a better place for these people who are alive and doing this and making music. Yeah, so yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. It's been really great having you here. And we hope that our organization can help in the long run, making this digging a little easier, supporting all of our all of the students who want to interact with us and help with this work. And we hope we can help you and all of us to be part of the change that makes this a little more normal and accessible.
Well, absolutely. You know, one of the things that would be really helpful for me is for you all to say, hey, there's this great composer who has this fantastic piece, and we should have their scores, right? Or, you know, find the scores that we do have. And actually I should, I wonder if I can make another guide on some of the composers that we have collected works for, and get them played. You know, that's the most important, is to get these works played and performed, and have your colleagues hear them. So what I would say for me in the library collection is, just as it's a discovery for you, you know, it's work towards discovering these composers for you and these pieces. It's the same work for me. So if you find a composer and you think we should have these works, or you know, I'm really interested in this piece, or this is sort of the big new thing in the saxophone world. It won a saxophone composition contest, for example. The first composer that I showed you, Kevin Day, he wrote a trumpet concerto for the International Trumpet Guild. I think it won their competition, and you know, that was so helpful to have someone come to me and say, this is a fantastic piece, we should consider getting this. That's a help for the library, because then we can build our collection, and it's like a crowd building. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. For all the people who are